The phantom limb. I want you to be honest with yourself for a moment. Truly honest. There is a part of you, a quiet, desperate part hidden behind your daily routine that believes with absolute certainty that more is the answer. You wake up, you check your notifications, you check your bank account, and you feel a subtle vibrating anxiety, a tightness in the chest. It's the feeling of lack. You tell yourself that if you just had enough money to never work again, the anxiety would vanish. If you had the power to shape the world exactly as you see fit, the suffering would stop. You look at the billionaires, the titans of industry, the people holding the strings of the world, and you feel a mix of envy and disgust. You hate them, yet you secretly fantasize about being them. But here is the uncomfortable truth that you are afraid to face. If you were given everything you ever wanted right now, if I handed you $1 trillion, absolute authority, and total freedom, it wouldn't save you. It would dismantle you. We are going to explore a terrifying reality today. It is not a political discussion about wealth tax or economics. It is a look into the mirror of the human soul. We are going to look at why the human mind is biologically and spiritually incapable of handling the concept of infinity, and why the pursuit of absolute power is actually a symptom of a deep, incurable terror living inside of you. You are not tired because you don't have enough. You are tired because you are running a race that has no finish line. And today, we are going to find out why you keep running. The architecture of the void. Let's start with a simple question. Why is enough never enough? You get the promotion, and the joy lasts for 3 weeks. You buy the car, and the thrill lasts for 3 months. You get the partner you dreamed of, and eventually you find yourself focusing on their flaws. Why does the gold turn to gray as soon as we hold it? The German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer offered a brutal answer to this. He described the human condition as a pendulum swinging eternally between 2 points, pain and boredom. When you want something, you feel pain, the pain of lack, of longing, of desire. You suffer because you do not have. But the moment you get what you want, the suffering doesn't disappear. It simply changes form. It becomes boredom. The object of your desire loses its luster. The void opens up again, demanding to be filled with something bigger, something more expensive, something louder. Now, imagine a human being who has removed all constraints, a trillionaire, a being for whom desire and fulfillment happen simultaneously. They think of a superyacht, and it exists. They want to change a law, and it is changed. They want to go to space, and the rocket is built. Schopenhauer would argue that for this person, the pendulum has stopped. And when the pendulum stops, we do not find peace. We find madness. Without the resistance of the world, without the no that reality gives us, the yes loses all meaning. We are defined by our limitations. The friction of life, the struggle to pay rent, the discipline to learn a skill, these are not obstacles to your life. They are your life. They are the texture of your existence. If you were to hold $1 trillion, you would effectively remove all friction. You would be floating in a vacuum, and in a vacuum, you cannot breathe. This is why we see the super wealthy often descending into bizarre behaviors, extreme paranoia, or detachment from humanity. They are frantically trying to feel something, anything, in a world they have rendered frictionless. You think you want a life of ease, but deep down, your psyche requires the monster to fight. Without the dragon, the hero has no identity. If you held the world in your hand,
the denial of death. But let's go deeper. Why do we hoard? Why does the number in the bank account need to go up even when we have more than we could spend in 1,000 lifetimes? It isn't about greed. Greed is too simple a word. It is about immortality. The anthropologist and philosopher Ernest Becker wrote a Pulitzer Prize-winning book called The Denial of Death. His thesis was profound and terrifying. Almost everything humans do is an intricate, unconscious strategy to deny the fact that we are going to die. We are unique among animals. We are gods with anuses. We have minds that can contemplate infinity, art, mathematics, and the cosmos. Yet we are trapped in bodies that sicken, rot, and eventually turn to dust. This dualism, this paradox of being a god trapped in a dying animal, creates a massive underlying terror. To cope with this terror, Becker says we create immortality projects. We build skyscrapers with our names on them. We write books. We have children. And most commonly, we accumulate power and wealth. Money is essentially frozen life force. It is stored agency. If I have money, I can control my environment. I can push back against the chaos. I can buy the best doctors. I can build high walls. I can insulate myself from the unpredictability of nature. Holding $1 trillion is the ultimate immortality project. It is the closest a human being can get to saying, I am not a temporary creature. I am a force of nature. I am permanent. But this is a lie, and it is a lie that eats the holder alive. Think of the ancient story of King Midas. We usually interpret it as a lesson about greed. Midas wishes that everything he touches turns to gold. He gets his wish, and he is ecstatic, until he tries to eat an apple, and it turns to hard, cold metal in his mouth, until he hugs his daughter, and she freezes into a golden statue. The deeper philosophical meaning here is about objectification. When you view the world purely through the lens of acquisition and value, you kill the life inside of it. If you held $1 trillion, you would look at a forest and see lumber. You would look at a person and see a resource or a threat. You would look at time as something to be maximized. You would turn the living, breathing, vibrant world into dead, cold gold. You would achieve immortality in the sense that statues are immortal, but you would also be dead. The ring of Gyges and the shadow self. Now, I know what you were thinking. You were thinking, but I would be different. If I had that power, I would fix the oceans. I would feed the hungry. I would be a benevolent god. Would you? Plato, in his work The Republic, tells the story of the ring of Gyges. It's a mythical ring that grants its wearer the power of invisibility. Plato asks, if a just man and an unjust man were both given this ring, removing all consequences for their actions, would they behave differently? Plato suggests that eventually they would walk the same path. Without the social pressure of shame, without the fear of punishment, the just man would steal, seduce, and destroy just as the unjust man would. Power does not corrupt. Power reveals. Look at your own life on a micro scale. How do you treat people who have zero power over you? How do you treat the waiter when they get your order wrong and you're having a bad day? How do you act in the comments section of a video when you are anonymous? How do you treat your Sims character or the NPCs in a video game when you get bored. There is a tyrant living inside you. It is small right now because you are small. It is contained because you are vulnerable. But if we poured $1 trillion of gasoline on that small spark of tyranny, it would become an inferno. Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of the will to power. He argued that this is the fundamental drive of all life. But he distinguished between the weak, who seek power over others to feel safe, and the strong, who seek power over themselves. The accumulation of external wealth is actually the behavior of the weak. It is a fortress built by a frightened child. A person who truly possesses their own soul does not need to own the world. When you fantasize about having unlimited power, you are fantasizing about removing your need to negotiate with reality. You want to force the world to bow to your will so you never have to be hurt again. But love, connection, and meaning require vulnerability. They require you to be capable of being hurt. A trillionaire is the most defensive, armored human on Earth, and therefore, they are the most incapable of love. They are surrounded by people, yet entirely alone. They are trapped in a panopticon of their own making, wondering if anyone is smiling at them or just smiling at the money. Paranoia becomes their only true companion. The weight of Atlas. Let's move from the psychological to the existential. Let's talk about responsibility. We often associate money with freedom, financial freedom. But at the scale of $1 trillion, money transforms from freedom into gravity. Imagine holding the GDP of a medium-sized country in your hands. Every decision you make sends ripples that destroy lives. You decide to move a factory, 10,000 families starve. You decide to invest in AI, an entire industry collapses. You donate to a cause, you accidentally bankrupt the local economy by flooding it with foreign aid, a very real phenomenon. You become Atlas, holding the sky, and the human brain was not designed to be Atlas. We evolved to care for a tribe of about 150 people, Dunbar's number. We are wired to handle the stress of a bad harvest or a tribal dispute. We are not wired to handle the stress of planetary stewardship. This level of responsibility creates a dissociation from reality. You have to shut off your empathy just to function. If you truly felt the weight of every dollar, you would collapse. So you numb yourself. You turn people into statistics on a spreadsheet. You become the cold monster that Nietzsche warned about. And here is the twist. You become a slave to the wealth. You think you own the money, but the money owns you. You must protect it. You must grow it because of inflation and market forces. You must manage the legions of lawyers, advisors, and guards who maintain it. You stop living your life and start managing an empire. You become a custodian of a pile of gold that will outlast you. You sacrifice your one true, non-renewable resource, your time, to protect a resource that is theoretically infinite. It is the ultimate bad trade. The golden cage. So, where does this leave us? Why have I spent this time deconstructing the fantasy of wealth? Because I want you to be free. Not financially free, though that is a worthy goal, but spiritually free from the lie that is making you miserable. The lie that more will fix broken. The philosophy of power teaches us that true power is not the ability to control the world. It is the ability to control your reaction to the world. It is the ability to sit in an empty room and feel complete. The Stoic philosopher Seneca was one of the richest men in Rome. He could have anything, yet he practiced days of poverty. He slept on the floor and ate stale bread. Why? To prove to himself that the thing he feared, lacking comfort,
was not that bad. To prove that his happiness was generated internally, not purchased externally. You are suffering right now, not because you don't have $1 trillion, but because you are comparing your behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. You are suffering because you believe the void in your chest has the shape of a coin, when in reality it has the shape of connection, purpose, and acceptance. No human should ever hold $1 trillion, not just because it's bad for the economy, but because it is a violation of human nature. It is a cancer of the soul. It is an attempt to be God. And whenever humans try to be God, they create hell.
So let's confront the ultimate counter-argument to wealth. Let's look at the only human being who ever truly defeated the trillionaire mindset. We have to go back to ancient Greece, to a man living in a ceramic wine jar in the streets of Athens, Diogenes the Cynic. Diogenes possessed nothing. He owned a wooden bowl to drink water from, but one day he saw a child cup his hands to drink from a river. Diogenes smashed his bowl on the ground, crying out, "Fool that I am to have been carrying superfluous baggage all this time." Now, contrast him with Alexander the Great. Alexander was the equivalent of our modern trillionaire. He had conquered the known world. He held absolute power. He was a god in human flesh. History tells us that Alexander heard of this strange philosopher and decided to visit him. He found Diogenes sunbathing in the dirt. Alexander, casting a long shadow over the beggar, said, "I am Alexander the Great. Ask of me anything you wish, and I will grant it." This was the ultimate test, the offer of infinite resources, the $1 trillion check. Diogenes squinted, looked up at the most powerful man on earth, and simply said, "Yes, stand a little out of my sun." Do you understand the nuclear power of that sentence? Alexander had the power to kill Diogenes instantly. He had the power to give him a palace. But Diogenes had something Alexander did not. He had autonomy. He had a soul that could not be bought, because it did not desire what Alexander was selling. Alexander walked away stunned. He told his generals, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Why? Because Alexander was a slave to his own ambition. He had to conquer the next city. He had to secure the borders. He was driven by a hunger that forced him to march until his feet bled and his men mutinied. Diogenes was free. The philosophy of power teaches us that the man who needs nothing is invincible. You cannot bribe him. You cannot threaten him with poverty, for he is already there and content. You are likely not going to live in a wine jar, but you can cultivate your inner Diogenes. You can look at the advertisements, the luxury cars, the frantic hustle culture, and the promise of the $1 trillion life, and you can say, "You are blocking my sun. You are blocking the light of my actual reality. You are blocking my ability to enjoy this moment with your promise of a future that will never come." The architecture of good faith. Jean-Paul Sartre, the French existentialist, spoke of bad faith, mauvaise foi. Bad faith is when we lie to ourselves to avoid the terrifying responsibility of our own freedom. We adopt roles. We say, "I have to do this job because I have bills," or "I act this way because that's just how society is." Holding $1 trillion is the ultimate act of bad faith. It is the attempt to become an object, an institution, rather than a person. It is an attempt to freeze yourself into a monument. But if we reject that, we must live in good faith. And what does that look like? It looks like accepting the fragility of life. There is a concept in Japanese philosophy called wabi-sabi. It is the appreciation of the imperfect, the impermanent, and the incomplete. It is seeing the crack in the teacup, not as a flaw, but as the history of the object. $1 trillion tries to fix the crack. It tries to replace the cup with a diamond chalice that never breaks. But a diamond chalice has no story. It has no warmth. To live in good faith is to love the crack. It is to love your aging parents, not wish you could afford to freeze them in cryogenics. It is to love your struggle to learn a new language, not wish you could download it into your brain like a computer. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, argued that the primary drive of man is not pleasure, as Freud thought, or power, as Adler thought, but meaning. Meaning is only found in struggle. Meaning is found in the tension between who you are and who you are becoming. If you had $1 trillion, that tension would snap. You would instantly be everything, and therefore, you would be nothing.
You are currently in the hero's journey. You are in the dark forest. You are fighting the trials. You are wishing for the helicopter to come and lift you out, to drop you at the finish line. But if that happened, the movie of your life would be terrible. The audience would boo. You would have robbed yourself of your own victory. The currency of attention. Let's bring this down to the most practical level possible. If you shouldn't hoard dollars, what should you hoard? Time? No, time passes regardless. Energy? Energy fades. You should hoard attention. The French philosopher Simone Weil said, "Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity." In a world obsessed with capital, attention is the true currency. When you hold $1 trillion, you are paying people for their time, but you are rarely getting their attention. They are looking at your wallet, not your eyes. But you, right now, with your bank account exactly as it is, have the power to give someone your absolute, undivided attention. To listen to a friend without glancing at your phone. To watch a sunset without trying to capture it for Instagram. To read a book without skimming. This is a power that the super wealthy often lose. Their attention is fractured by 1,000 obligations, lawsuits, and investments. They are everywhere, so they are nowhere. You have the luxury of presence. And this brings us to a chilling realization. You might actually be richer than the people you envy. If you can sit on a park bench for an hour, watching the wind move through the trees, feeling the sun on your face, with no guards, no board of directors calling you, no fear of the stock market crashing, and no paranoia that you are being targeted, you are possessing a luxury that emperors killed for. You are experiencing the raw data of the universe, unfiltered by the distortion field of power. The open hand. I want to leave you with one final image. Imagine a clenched fist. A clenched fist is strong. It can strike. It can hold on to money. It can grab power. But a clenched fist cannot receive. It cannot hold another hand. It is closed off from the world. Now imagine an open hand. It is vulnerable. It is empty. But because it is empty, it can feel the air. It can touch the world. It can be held. The pursuit of the $1 trillion life is the pursuit of the permanent clenched fist. It is a defensive posture against existence. But you were not made to be a fist. You were made to be an open hand. Don't let the philosophy of power trick you into thinking you are small. You are not small because you lack resources. You are vast because you contain the capacity to experience, to suffer, to overcome, and to love. Let the titans have their gold. Let them have their statues. Let them have the anxiety of the infinite. You have something better. You have the beautiful, terrifying, limited, and utterly real experience of being human. And that is a price no trillionaire can pay. Exploring potential angles. I've been examining the request's core. The focus is to produce a viral philosophy video, and I am starting to find good ideas. My goal is to craft a compelling narrative around the concept of infinite hunger, exploring its potential downsides. I need to ensure it's both thought-provoking and engaging for a YouTube audience. Analyzing extension possibilities. I'm wrestling with the post-conclusion segment. The natural endpoint felt definitive, but the request suggests more. I'm exploring options akin to those found in popular philosophy YouTube channels.
Adding the postscript. Now I'm designing the epilogue. The narrative structure feels sound, but I'm focusing on the day after. I'll integrate the philosophy using Amor Fati by Nietzsche. I'm aiming to help the viewer connect the ideas to their everyday lives. I'm focusing on later as a concept and how to approach integrating these concepts into daily life. Integrating real-world application. I'm now mapping out the Monday morning reality epilogue, focusing on immediate application. I'm building a connection to Alan Watts and Eastern philosophy to ground it. It's about the if-then trap. I'm also working on enoughness using Epicurus, reframing the hedonic treadmill. A visualization exercise to see the negative in reverse feels like a strong conclusion. My main objective here is to highlight the value of what we already have. Finalizing the content. I'm now integrating the final pieces, focusing on the core concept that we have more than royalty ever dreamed of, yet dissatisfaction persists. The key is in desire itself. I'm aiming for an intimate tone, using we and you to connect with the audience, maintaining a melancholic yet hopeful undertone rooted in existentialism. I'm ensuring the script avoids generic motivational tropes, staying true to a grounded philosophical approach, emphasizing modernity and our ancestral trillionaire status. Refining post-credit section. I'm now revising the post-credit segment. The user requested a continuation, so I'm conceptualizing a bonus chapter, a deep dive after the initial conclusion. This aftermath segment will address the immediate implications of the ideas, bridging the gap between philosophical contemplation and practical application. I'm structuring this as Part 8, The Ancestral Trillionaire, and Part 9, Amor Fati, before a final outro. The Ancestral God. But before we go, I need to shatter one last illusion. We have spent this entire time talking about what if you had $1 trillion. We have treated it as a fantasy, a distant impossibility. But if we look at the timeline of human history, I have a shocking revelation for you. You are the trillionaire. To a human being living just 500 years ago, to a king of France or an emperor of China in the 1500s, your life is indistinguishable from magic. You possess a rectangle in your pocket that contains the sum of all human knowledge, the Library of Alexandria, instantly accessible. You can fly across oceans in hours. You have temperature control in your home that defies the seasons. You have access to spices, fruits, and meats that wars were once fought over, available at a corner store for pennies. You have antibiotics that turn fatal sentences into minor inconveniences. Louis XIV, the Sun King, the man who built Versailles, rotted away from gangrene in his leg, in agony, smelling his own flesh decay. He would have traded his entire kingdom, all his gold, and every palace he owned for a single dose of the penicillin that you can get for $10. You are living the life that the gods of antiquity dreamed of. You are swimming in a level of resource abundance that is statistically impossible for 99.9% of the humans who have ever walked this earth. And yet, you are still miserable. This is the final proof that the $1 trillion wouldn't save you, because you already have the equivalent of it relative to your ancestors, and the hedonic treadmill has simply adjusted the speed. You normalized the miracle. You got bored with the magic. If you cannot find peace in the abundance you have now, you will not find it with another zero added to your bank account. The problem is not the inventory of your life. The problem is the vessel of your soul. It is leaking. Amor Fati, the love of fate. So, how do we patch the leak? How do we stop the hunger? Friedrich Nietzsche offered a solution that is the exact opposite of the trillionaire fantasy. He called it Amor Fati, the love of fate. The trillionaire fantasy is a rejection of reality. It says, I will love my life only when I can control it completely. I will love my life only when the pain stops. Amor Fati says, I love this life, all of it.
The pain, the boredom, the heartbreak, the struggle, the rainy Tuesdays, the empty bank account, the grief is not just accepting your life. It is craving nothing other than what is happening right now. Nietzsche asks us to imagine a demon creeping into our loneliest loneliness and saying, "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more. And there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh must return to you." This is the doctrine of eternal recurrence. If you had to live this exact life with all its flaws over and over again for eternity, would you curse the demon, or would you throw yourself down and gnash your teeth? The person who wants the $1 trillion would scream in terror. They want to escape their life. The person who understands the philosophy of power would welcome the demon. They would say, "Yes, give it to me again." Because they have found the beauty in the struggle. They realize that the friction is what makes the music. You do not need to reshape the world to fit your ego. You need to expand your soul to fit the world. The Monday morning test. Tomorrow morning, you are going to wake up. The alarm will ring. You will feel tired. You will look at your phone and see someone else winning, someone else traveling, someone else holding the gold. The hunger will try to come back. It will whisper that you are behind. It will tell you that you need to run faster. When that happens, I want you to pause. I want you to look at your hands. I want you to realize that you are a biological miracle, a consciousness floating in a universe that is mostly dead space. I want you to realize that you are the descendant of survivors, the apex of a billion-year struggle. You are not a pre-rich person waiting for your life to begin. You are not a temporarily embarrassed millionaire. You are here. You are alive. You are capable of feeling the wind, of tasting the coffee, of enduring the hardship, and of loving the people around you. The $1 trillion check is a myth. It is a ghost story we tell ourselves because we are afraid of the dark. But you don't need the check. You have the fire. Burn bright. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. If this video made you think, consider subscribing. We explore